Okay, so now calling to order the case of Jordan Street versus Reese Taylor, cause number 18 CV 00120. We're now ready for pretrial. Plaintiff.
Good morning, Your Honor. Aisling Fitzpatrick representing the plaintiff, Jordan Street, in this matter. Along with me, I have my co-counsel, Carolyn McGuigan. We have no housekeeping matters at this time, Your Honor.
Okay. Any pretrial motions or anything that we need to go over?
Your Honor, we had two pretrial motions regarding testimony from Jess Merriweather. However, we discussed the same with opposing counsel, and we've agreed to preclude those from the trial today. So at this time, we have no further substantive motions, Your Honor.
Perfect. Okay. Anything else? Oh, well, let me switch my timer over. Sorry. Okay. 5 minutes pretrial for defense here.
Yes. Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Carson Sadro, and I'm here alongside co-counsel Chance Stirrup. And together we represent Coach Reese Taylor, the defendant in this case. Your Honor, we also don't have any preliminary matters to address, but we would like to put Your Honor on notice of two substantive motions that we've agreed to with co-counsel prior to trial today.
Sure.
Yes, Your Honor. There was a prior incident at a prior school that Coach Reese Taylor worked at in which she shoved a student to the ground. Co-counsel and I have agreed before trial began this morning that any testimony regarding that incident will be inadmissible.
Okay, perfect.
And there's one more, Your Honor. Following the death of Rory Street on September 7th of 2018, Waco High School instituted a policy in which they kept Gatorade and shade tents on the field. And we've also agreed to exclude any testimony regarding those two things.
Okay, good deal.
And with, sorry, Your Honor.
No, sorry, you go ahead, sorry.
And we also just wanted to bring Your Honor's attention to one of the pre-admitted exhibits in Your Honor's pretrial order.
Sure.
And just bring to Your Honor's attention that exhibit 18, the expert report of Spencer London, has been pre-admitted.
All right, sounds good.
And with that, the defense is ready to proceed.
All right. Let me get my timers reset. And so just so y'all are tracking, what I'm going to do is I'll announce how much time you have left after you finish talking each time. Probably only towards closing. Once y'all get to 10 minutes and lower, I'll give you hand signals. Once you get to 1 minute, I'll give you the 1. 30 seconds, I'll give you the, whatever this is, the hook. And then, I'm going to cut you off. Once you hit 0, we're supposed to actually cut you off. So just be sure that you're tracking where my hands are. Other than that, I think we're ready to roll. Plaintiff, if you are ready to proceed with opening argument.
Yes, Your Honor.
Whenever you're ready.
You're useless on the field, so I might as well run you until you pass out. Those were the defendant's words to Rory Street minutes before she collapsed on the soccer field and died. Now, it didn't matter to the defendant that Rory was visibly pale, exhausted, unable to catch her breath, and struggling. The defendant chose to ignore these signs and instead ordered her player to keep going. The defendant, her soccer coach, the person who was meant to protect her health and safety, watched Rory Street collapse after being tackled again and again and again and again. You'll hear the defendant yanked her off the ground by her jersey just to be tackled again, instead of offering Rory water or a break or any support. She watched Rory suffer, and then she watched Rory die. Rory Street died because of the defendant's drills and the defendant's decisions that prioritize discipline over safety and winning over health. Your Honor, I'm honored to stand before you today representing the mother of Rory Street in her wrongful death claim against the defendant in this matter. Now, you'll learn today that Rory was a high school soccer player who died because of the defendant's negligence. As the coach of her daughter's soccer team, Coach Taylor had a duty to conduct her practices in a reasonable manner that protected the health and safety of her players. Instead, you'll learn that Coach Taylor breached this duty by going against industry practices. She gave Rory Street no breaks, provided inadequate supervision, and ordered her to perform grueling physical drills which were untested and were unsafe. This resulted in the death of my client's daughter and any hopes that she had of a future. Now you'll learn about Rory Street today. You'll learn that she was the brightest star on that varsity soccer team, with scholarship offers from multiple colleges to play Division I soccer after high school. But Rory was a lot more than just a soccer player. She was a daughter, a friend, and most importantly, she was just an 18-year-old kid who had a whole life before her. You'll learn that instead of being mentored by her coach, the defendant, she was bullied by a person twice her age, targeted by the defendant until she collapsed on the soccer field and died. Rory Street died in the middle of the defendant's soccer practice, in the middle of the defendant's drill. Now you're going to hear today from an expert, Dr. McConaughey, who will tell you that Rory died on September 7th of heat stroke and heat exhaustion. Now you'll learn this was caused by the way the defendant chose to run her practices. She prioritized discipline over the health and safety of Rory Street, and she held practices when it was over 100 degrees outside without adequate supervision and without regular water breaks or shade from that scorching heat. You'll learn this was a violation of industry guidelines. Now, today you'll learn that after the defendant became enraged by what she perceived to be laziness and sloppiness on the part of Rory Street, the defendant subjected Rory to punishing soccer drills. First, she had Rory run the Burma Road, a drill designed to punish players, which you'll learn involves the player running for 60 yards and then performing a bear crawl back for the 60 yards. Now, bear crawling, as the name indicates, involves crawling on your hands and knees on the ground, much like an animal. Now, at this point, you'll hear that Miss Street was visibly unwell. She was pale, she was out of breath, and she was struggling in that scorching heat. But you'll learn that rather than stopping the drill, the defendant's response was to have Rory participate in a brand new drill, one that she invented that very day in order to discipline Rory. The defendant ordered the rest of the team to line up and slide tackle Rory Street. Now you'll learn today that slide tackling involved other players running up to Rory and trying to tackle the ball away from her, in turn knocking into her. This repeatedly resulted in her being knocked to the ground. These were painful drills, and these were unnecessary. Now you'll hear after the first tackle, Rory fell to the ground and was clearly in visible pain. She was struggling, and the defendant will admit this to you today. But the defendant's response to seeing Rory's struggle was to walk over and instead of offering her water or giving her a break or helping her in any way, yanked her up by her jersey and ordered her to keep on going. A tackle, a fall, a tackle, another fall. Rory kept on hitting the ground and having to get back up. Until finally, Your Honor, after 15 of these back-to-back in that scorching heat, Rory did not get back up. She couldn't get back up. Instead, you'll hear that she began groaning and shaking and convulsing before passing out on the floor of the soccer field, dying from heat exhaustion. Now you'll learn today the defendant is not taking responsibility for what happened on her soccer field during her drill. Instead, she's blaming Rory for her own death by pointing to a nominal amount of cocaine that was found in her blood during the autopsy. However, you'll hear from our expert today, Dr. McConaughey, a medical doctor, who will tell you that the cocaine did not kill Miss Street. The heat did. The evidence will show that Rory died from the heat stroke due to the defendant's negligence in the way that she conducted her soccer practice. After she failed to adequately supervise her players, failed to provide enough breaks and water, and forced them to perform grueling physical tasks that were untested and that were unsafe. Your Honor, the defendant's negligence in the way that she conducted her soccer practices, ignoring guidelines, and ignoring her responsibilities, caused the death of Rory Street on September 7th. As such, at the end of today's trial, I ask you to deliver the only verdict consistent with justice and consistent with the facts in this case, to find the defendant, Coach Taylor, liable for the death of Rory Street. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Fitzpatrick, you've got 47:28 left. Okay. All right, and Ms. Sadro, I'm ready for you whenever you're ready, and I'll start your time.
May it please the court. Something was different. It's September 7th, 2018. Coach Reese Taylor is getting ready for the start of the high school soccer season. She gets out onto the practice field, takes in the fresh cut grass, and notices that it's a scorching Texas heat day. She sees her players on the sideline warming up already. Now, Coach Taylor's excited because this team has been practicing for a few weeks now, and they're looking good. She thinks that this team has what it takes to make it all the way. Coach Taylor thought that this was going to be a normal practice. She had no idea that something was different. Now, Your Honor, you may be asking yourself, well, what was different? Because it wasn't the coach, it wasn't the players, it wasn't the heat. Your Honor, what you're going to learn today is that something that was different was Rory Street and the cocaine she had in her system. Now, the plaintiff just got up here a moment ago, and they told you a story about a domineering coach who pushed her players over the line and past their breaking points. But, Your Honor, what you're actually going to learn today is that is not what happened. What you're going to learn is that Coach Taylor is an experienced coach of 26 years. She provides water for her players at every practice, allows them to take breaks whenever they need it, and she keeps an athletic trainer right on site. So for September 7th, Coach Taylor set out to run this practice like any other. And she started it with something called a Burma road drill that you just heard about a moment ago. I want to be clear, Your Honor, you're going to learn that this drill, it's kind of like running suicides on a basketball court. It's something that these soccer players at Waco High have been doing for decades. And then she had the players do something called a slide tackle drill. And the plaintiff just got up here and they told you that this slide tackle drill, well, it couldn't have been reasonable. What you're actually going to learn, Your Honor, is that these slide tackle drills, they're a normal part of soccer. They happen every game. So first up during that drill, Coach Reese Taylor puts in her star player, Rory Street. Rory's completing these drills like normal. Every time she gets knocked down, she pops back up and heads back over to the sidelines. Coach Taylor doesn't notice anything wrong. Rory keeps going. When suddenly, and out of nowhere, Rory Street collapses. Coach Taylor panics, the team panics, the athletic trainer calls 911, somebody please come help our player. But it's too late. Coach Taylor is confused. She doesn't know what's happened. Why was this practice different? What was different? Rory Street and the cocaine in her system. Cocaine that Coach Reese Taylor didn't have any idea about. Cocaine that killed her. But despite all of this, the plaintiff is here suing in negligence for the wrongful death of Rory Street. And when they did that, it meant that they have to prove a couple of things to you. First, that Coach Taylor owed a duty to her students, that she breached that duty, and that that breach caused Rory Street's death. They have to prove all of this to you by what's called a preponderance of the evidence. It's simply that more likely than not. They're not going to be able to do that because it wasn't the coach that killed Rory, it was the cocaine. But we anticipate in an effort to meet this burden, they're going to call a couple of witnesses. And when they do, Your Honor, I want you to pay attention. Ask yourself, what were these witnesses actually able to see? What were they able to hear? Were they present when these drills were happening? Your Honor, we're also going to call a couple of witnesses in today's case. You're going to be able to hear from Coach Taylor herself. Coach Taylor is going to tell you that, yes, she can be a tough coach. It's Texas. But she knows where the line is. She knows that there is a line between discipline and hurting a student. She's going to tell you that she ran that practice on September 7th like she's been running them for 26 years. She'll tell you she had no idea that Rory had taken cocaine. Throughout today's trial, I want you to ask yourself a couple of questions. One, what was different about that practice on September 7th? And two, what actually killed Rory Street? Your Honor, we're confident that at the end of today's trial, you're going to see that the answer to both of those questions is cocaine. It was the cocaine in Rory's system that was different that day, not Coach Taylor. That's why at the end of today's trial, I'm going to come before you again and ask that you find Coach Reese Taylor not liable. Thank you.
Okay, 48:29 remaining. And so let me get timer set here. All right, 47:28, and we're ready to begin plaintiff's case in chief. You can start whenever you're ready.
Yes, Your Honor. Prior to calling our first witness today, we seek to admit Exhibit 14, that is the autopsy of Rory Street in this matter. We have discussed the same with opposing counsel pre-trial, and she has no objection to the same.
Is that the case, Ms. Stark?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, good deal. Yeah, then it is admitted, and like I said, feel free to publish it whenever you'd like.
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the plaintiff calls Aubrey Saracen to the stand.
Saracen. Ms. Saracen, you with us?
I'm here. It's saying that I can't start my video because the host has stopped.
Okay, well, I've got the timer paused, so let's wait a second here. If I need to go grab tech support, I will.
I'll be right back.
Hang tight, everybody. We need to be able to see her. Sorry about this, guys. It sounds like they're running outside and grabbing tech support. Sorry about that.
That's all right, Your Honor. We're all learning Zoom together.
Sure.
Host has stopped it. Kyle, can you hear us?
I can hear y'all. We can't see you.
Okay. It says that you can't start video because the host has stopped it. Is there something?
Let me see if I can.
There might be a permission you have to give her.
I can ask to start video, see if you can do it then.
That is what we need. All right, there we go.
There we go. Yeah, I don't know why that happened. I'm sorry, guys.
Oh, good. Thank you, Kyle.
All right. Plaintiff, whenever you're ready to proceed.
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning. Can you please introduce yourself to the court?
Yes, I am Aubrey Saracen.
Where are you from, Ms. Saracen?
I'm from Waco, Texas.
And how old are you?
I'm 18.
Are you currently in school?
Yes, I'm in my senior year of high school.
And have you figured out what you're doing after high school?
Yes, I am going to go to Rice University,
Which high school do you attend?
Waco High School.
Now, at Waco High School, are you involved in any extracurricular activities?
Yes, I'm on the varsity soccer team.
Do you enjoy playing soccer?
Yes, I've played my whole life. I love soccer.
Now, I want to draw your attention to Rory Street. I know this may be difficult for you, so if at any point you need to take a break, just let me know. But can you tell the court how you knew Rory Street?
We played soccer together all growing up, and we played on the varsity soccer team together for 4 years.
Who was your coach on the varsity soccer team?
Coach Taylor.
And how many years did Coach Taylor, the defendant, coach you for?
For all 4 years of high school.
And what was he like as a coach?
He was good for the team. He made us successful, but he was always pretty tough and punished us through intimidation a lot of the times.
Now, we'll get to that in just a moment, but I want to draw your attention specifically to September 7th, 2018. Do you remember that day?
Of course, I remember that day. That's when Rory died.
Now, we'll discuss Rory's death in a second, but where were you that day?
I was at soccer practice that day, and coach got mad at me for not playing well, I guess, and I started.
Objection, Your Honor. Speculation.
All right, let's hear it.
Yes, Your Honor. The witness just testified that her coach got mad at her because she's not playing well. That's the witness stepping inside the mind of Coach Taylor, and therefore it's speculation.
Ms. Fitzpatrick.
Your Honor, the witness can rephrase her answer.
Yeah, rephrase the answer. That's fine. So sustain, but just I'll encourage the witness just to testify as to what you know. You can testify that it was your impression that they were Coach Taylor was mad at you for that reason. That's perfectly permissible.
I was at practice and then got told to run Burma Road.
Now, just to be clear, what time was practice that day at?
At 3:15.
And what was the weather like?
It was really hot. It was summer in Waco, about 100 degrees that day.
Do you remember being given any breaks on that hot day?
No, I don't remember getting any breaks.
Now, you just mentioned that you were made to go and run Burma Road Run. What is that?
It's where you run 30 yards and then you dribble the ball for 30 yards and then you have to bear crawl all the way back for 60 yards.
Can you explain to the court what a bear crawl is?
Yes, it's like what a bear looks like walking or running. You're on your hands and feet, running on your hands and feet.
Now, when you were told to do one of these drills, how many did you have to do?
You just kept going until coach told you to stop. Sometimes it was once, sometimes it went on forever.
Now, I want to ask you about the interaction between Coach Taylor and Rory on that day. Do you remember what that was like?
Yes. Coach was getting mad at Rory and was telling him that he wasn't playing well. And he told him to go run Burma Road that day because he said that he was useless and he might as well run till he passes out.
Now, when Coach Taylor told Rory Street that he was useless, she was useless, and should run until she passes out, where were you standing in relation to the defendant?
I was on the Burma Road field that we did that exercise on.
And could you hear from where you were standing what the defendant was saying?
Yes.
And why is that?
Because we were about 20 yards from each other, so I could easily see and hear what was going on.
Was she talking loudly?
Yes, she was yelling at him.
Now, after the defendant yelled at Rory, what did Rory do?
Rory came and started running Burma Road with me.
Now, before she ran Burma Road with you, did you hear the defendant ask Rory if she needed a break at any point?
No.
Did she explain what she meant by running until Rory passed out?
No,
Did she offer Rory any water?
no.
And how long did this yelling last for?
Just a minute or so. And he came up, or she came up and started running with me.
Now, you've spoken about the Burma Road area, so I just want to talk about the layout of the soccer field with you. Your Honor, directing court and counsel to what has been pre-marked as Exhibit 2.
Sure thing, and feel free to screen share if you'd like.
Yes, Your Honor. Do you have that in front of you, Ms. Harrison?
Yes,
Do you recognize that?
yes.
How do you recognize it?
It's an aerial view of the, of where we practiced the soccer.
Is that a fair and accurate depiction of what the field looked like on September 7th, 2018?
Yes,
Your Honor, at this time, the plaintiff offers Exhibit 2 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, it's admitted, and I apologize about that. Just make sure it's admitted before you screen share. I apologize. I thought this was one of the things that was pre-admitted, but just that was my bad. Sorry about that.
Yes, Your Honor. Now, looking at the screen in front of you, Ms. Saracen, can you explain, or can you tell the court where soccer practice took place?
the soccer practice and scrimmages took place in the blue field.
Now, you mentioned that you and Rory were running Burma Road that day. Where did that take place?
In the red area on the field.
And was there any shade on the practice field from the sun?
No,
Were there any trees?
no.
And during, while you were in the red box running Burma Road, where was Coach Taylor?
Coach Taylor was in the blue box on the practice field. Yes, around in the middle of the field.
You can take that down, Ms. McGuigan. Now, you said that you were off to the side in that red box with Rory. At any point, did the defendant come over to you while you were running Burma Road?
No,
Did a trainer come over to you while you were running Burma Road?
no.
Now, I want to talk to you about how Rory was doing at this point. How was he doing? How was she doing while you were running Burma Road?
She was really struggling. She started to get really pale, and she told me that she was feeling funny.
Did you ask her if she was okay at this point?
Yes, and she just said that she was feeling funny and didn't seem well that day.
Now, did you see the defendant interact with Rory at any point again during the practice?
Yes.
How so?
The Coach Taylor noticed that Rory wasn't doing Burma Road to his expectations, I guess, and yelled at him that he was lollygagging, and told him that he needed to come over back to the scrimmage field and show him that he's not that special for lollygagging.
Your Honor, objection, speculation.
Your Honor.
Let's hear it. How is that speculative?
Your Honor, this
Honor.
witness is testifying.
Hold on one second. Let's hear the objection from defense first.
Your Honor, I believe I heard the witness state that coach was going to punish Rory for lollygagging. And the reason behind whatever drill the coach ran, again, would be stepping inside the mind of Coach Taylor.
Plaintiff.
Your Honor, I believe the witness has testified that the defendant was yelling these things out loud, and that is how she knows this.
That's what I heard too, and I'm going to overrule it. She can testify as to what she witnessed Coach Taylor doing that day. One point of clarification that I want to ask real quick before we go any further. Coach Taylor's a woman, correct? And
Yes, Your Honor.
the decedent is a woman, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, just wanted to verify. All right, whenever you're ready to continue.
Now, you mentioned that Coach Taylor was yelling at Rory again. What did she yell?
She yelled, "You don't practice worth crap. You're lollygagging over there." I guess you think you're special. Come over here and I'll show you how special you aren't.
Now, after Coach Taylor yelled at Rory for a second time, what did Rory do?
Rory was told to go back to the scrimmage field and do the slide tackle drill.
Can you explain what a slide tackle drill is?
They had all of the players line up in a single file line, and Rory had to stand a bit away from them, about in the middle of the field. And the players had to, or Rory had the ball and he had to dribble it, and the players would come up and try to slide tackle the ball away from Rory.
In slide tackling the ball away from Rory, did that involve any physical contact with Rory?
Yes, the players were wearing cleats, and in doing a slide tackle, they could easily hit his shin or his waist, or it caused a lot of physical contact with his shins, and they would try to knock him over to try and get the ball.
Now, are these slide tackles painful?
Yes, they can be.
When the defendant had Rory line up for a slide tackle drill, where were you standing?
I was still on the Burma Road field.
Could you see from where you were standing how Rory looked?
Yes.
And how did she look?
She still looked pale and tired, and not like she normally would look during practice.
And where was the defendant standing at this time?
The defendant was on the side of the field watching what was going on.
Now, you mentioned earlier that it was a scorching hot day. Was it still hot at this point?
Yes.
Did you hear Coach Taylor offer Rory a break at any point?
No.
Did you hear her offer Rory water?
No.
Did you hear her ask Rory if she was okay?
No.
Now, I want to talk some more about that slide tackle drill. What happened during the drill?
The players that were lined up in a single file line would all run towards Rory and try to slide tackle the ball away from him. And the first time he got knocked over, and it just kept continuing.
Now, after Rory got knocked over the first slide tackle, did the defendant stop the drill?
No. She went over to Rory, grabbed her by her jersey, and picked her up and told her she needed to keep going.
Do you know how many times this drill took place that day?
15 times.
Ms. Harrison, have you ever seen the slide tackle drill done like this before?
No, I've never seen anything like this before.
And what happened after that 15th slide tackle drill involving Rory?
Rory fell to the ground. He just collapsed and started shaking and convulsing, and there was an obvious problem going on at that time.
Now, you said that she fell to the ground. Did Rory get back up at all?
No. He had laid there. It looked like he started having a seizure, and he was shaking, and everyone was scared and just stood around him while it was happening.
Now, while Rory was having what appeared to be a seizure on the floor, what was the defendant doing?
The defendant just stood there and watched it happen.
And was an ambulance called?
Yes, by our trainer.
And what happened while you were waiting for that ambulance for Rory?
Everyone just stood there and waited until the ambulance came. Rory was struggling and looked like he was having a seizure, and it was just terrible to see that happen.
And what eventually happened to Rory, Ms. Harrison?
He died.
Thank you, Ms. Harrison. No further questions, Your Honor.
Yeah, 33:47 remaining. Let me reset the clock for cross. Okay, so 48 minutes and 29 seconds. That you can begin cross whenever you're ready.
Yes, Your Honor. Aubrey, I want to talk to you about something you just said on direct a moment ago. You were just asked what Coach Taylor did after Rory passed out, right?
Yes.
And you just told us that Coach Taylor stood there and did nothing, didn't you?
Yes.
Now, Aubrey, you remember giving a sworn deposition, don't you?
Yes.
And that deposition, you swore to tell the truth.
I did.
You swore to give a complete answer to every question asked.
Yes.
You swore that everything that you knew about September 7th was in that statement.
Yes.
Now, Aubrey, you have your deposition in front of you, don't you?
Yes.
It appears to be a fair and accurate representation of that deposition.
Yes.
And that's your signature on the last page.
It is.
Now, Aubrey, could you tell me where anywhere in that deposition you said that Coach stood there and did nothing?
I didn't say that. I said that the trainer ran over and called the ambulance.
So you didn't mention that Coach
Objection, Your
stood there
Honor.
and
This is an improper impeachment.
All right, let's hear the objection.
No, this is improper impeachment. Opposing counsel is trying to impeach this witness on what she didn't say in her prior deposition. What she said was the trainer was the one that went over to Rory Street when she collapsed and died, and someone else called the ambulance. Thus meaning that the defendant did not go over to Rory Street when she collapsed or call an ambulance when she collapsed.
May I be heard on that, Your Honor?
Absolutely.
Your Honor, this is an impeachment by omission. And if I can draw Your Honor's attention to page 14 of the witness's deposition.
Yes, ma'am. Hold on one sec. I'll pull that up.
Mr. Stirrup, are you able to share that page?
I can pull it up too. This is, let's see, Aubrey. And you said what page? I'm sorry.
Page 14,
Okay.
line 17.
Okay.
Your Honor, the witness was specifically asked, do you have anything to add regarding this matter that you haven't already said? And she said no. She was then asked, have you given complete answers to every question without leaving anything out? And she said yes.
All right. Direct me to the question. Then in the deposition,
Oh,
where
yes.
she was asked what
Yes.
was Coach Taylor's actions following the stroke.
Your Honor, on page 11, at line 14, the witness was asked what happened after the 15th time, in which she gave an answer of everything that happened after that 15th time during the tackle. And nowhere in that answer does the witness talk about what Coach was doing. Therefore,
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and sustain this objection. I mean, the question that was asked, were the answers complete? I mean, the question wasn't posed. What was Coach Taylor's actions at the time that the decedent went down? She gave a complete answer to the best of her ability. That's all that we can hold her to do. You didn't ask the specific question. So if you're going to impeach somebody, you've got to actually have that question on the record such that it's truly inconsistent. Her testimony, of course, is going to vary a little bit. That final question doesn't create a closed world of testimony. Okay, so let's make sure that we actually have an inconsistent statement when we're impeaching. So objection sustained.
yes, Your Honor, I'll move on.
Okay.
Now, Aubrey, I want to back up for a moment, okay? I want to talk about you and Rory. Now, you and Rory, you were good friends.
Yes.
You were best friends.
Yes.
You two played soccer together most of your life.
We did.
You played through the summers,
Yes.
the winter,
Yes.
the spring.
Yes.
You and Rory both played for Waco High, right?
Yes.
You were starters there.
Yes.
And this was going to be your final season.
It was.
And you had high hopes for that year.
I did.
Now, Aubrey, the soccer season normally begins in late August to early September, right?
Yes.
And you actually start practicing in early August
Yes.
to get ready for that season about a month out.
That's correct.
And you practice for that amount of time so that you can get back in shape.
Yes.
And you do that outside.
We do.
in the Texas heat
Yes,
in August.
that's correct.
And you did that all through August and September.
We did.
Now, Bree, by the time September 7th came around, you guys had been practicing for a few weeks, right?
Yes.
You spent several weeks getting used to that Texas heat.
I mean, I don't think we ever really get used to it. It's pretty hot,
But you practiced out in it for a few weeks, right?
yes,
Okay. And on September 7th, you said that practice was really hot that day.
yes,
It was over 100 degrees.
yes.
But that's not unusual for Waco in September, is it?
No, it's,
You and
typically
Rory have been out. Oh, excuse me, sorry.
you can keep going.
You and Rory have been out that heat before.
Yes,
You've played in that heat before.
yes,
And because it can be hot, well, there's always water at practice, right?
it's there, yeah.
And you're allowed to take a water break whenever you need one.
Not necessarily, but it's there.
Well, Aubrey, in your own words, you've said that you could take a water break whenever you need one.
Objection, Your Honor. That's hearsay.
All right, let's hear it.
Counsel is referring to this witness's own words. That would be an out-of-court statement being offered for the truth of the matter asserted. That's hearsay.
Sandra?
Your Honor, I'm just asking the witness to clarify what she said. I'm happy to rephrase that question in a different way.
Right. I mean, so even though she's on the stand, if this is a prior out-of-court statement, just remember that is hearsay, even though she's on the stand. So I'm going to sustain the objection insofar as you're referencing an out-of-court statement, unless you're going to try to impeach her or do something else that's permissible here. Okay.
Aubrey, I want to make sure I'm clear. Are you testifying that you couldn't run over and grab a drink of water during practice?
You could. I just mean it wasn't very encouraged.
Okay, but the water was there
Yes,
and you could drink it.
yes,
Now on September 7th, practice started at about 3:30 p.m., right?
yes.
And sometime during that practice, Coach Taylor sent you over to run some drills.
He or she did.
And that was called the Burma Road drill.
Yes,
Now the field where this drill is run, it's actually right next to the soccer field, right?
yes,
It's a flat piece of land,
yes,
covered in grass.
yes,
It's about 60 yards long.
yes,
And the drill you were sent to run involves dribbling the ball back and forth until Coach Taylor tells you to stop.
yes.
And you did that drill.
Doing a bear crawl.
Sure, including the bear crawl, and you do that until Coach tells you to stop.
Yes,
And you did that.
yes,
And while you were running that drill, you told us that Coach Taylor sent Rory over to run that drill with you, right?
yes,
Now, I want to ask you another question about something you said on direct. On direct, you were asked about what Coach Taylor said to Rory, right?
yes,
And you told us that you heard Coach say that she wanted her to run until she passes out, right?
kind of, yes.
Well, is that what you said on direct?
I said that she might as well run until she passes out, yes.
Okay. But Coach Taylor, well, she's said things like this before, hasn't she?
Yes,
And you guys kind of think that that's just Coach being Coach.
I guess so.
You normally just shrug it off.
Normally, but not in what happened here.
But usually when Coach says it, you shrug it off and let it go.
I guess so, yeah.
Now, when Rory came over to the side field, she was running these drills with you.
Yes,
And after some time, you told us she got called back over to the main field.
yes,
And Rory ran over there.
yes,
And you said that you saw Rory then had to do some slide tackling drills.
yes,
And it was during this drill that Rory collapsed.
Yes.
Now, you told us on direct that you saw that Rory was struggling and pale.
Yes.
But Aubrey, on September 7th, you didn't tell anyone that Rory was struggling or pale, did you?
No, I knew that would just make the coach more mad.
Well, you didn't tell Coach Taylor.
I didn't want to make her mad.
You didn't tell the athletic trainer on site.
No, I was busy running Burma Road.
You didn't tell any of your teammates about it.
No, I didn't have enough time to go down and tell anybody.
And on September 8th, you actually sent a text message about it, didn't you?
Objection, Your Honor.
All right, what's the basis of the objection?
Your Honor, we object to any mention of this text message that we believe that counsel is going to get into now, as it is hearsay.
Ms. Sadra?
Yes, Your Honor. I hadn't elicited any hearsay at this point, I don't believe. I was just laying the foundation for that text message, but I'm happy to address the response to that text message if Your Honor feels it's appropriate at this time.
Let's just go ahead and take care of it now. That's
Sure, Your
weird.
Honor. Yes, Your Honor. The text message we are intending to put in front of the witness is Exhibit 22, the final page in the case file today,
Okay.
in which the witness on the day following the accident texted one of her friends and said that Rory collapsed out of nowhere and it was just so sudden. Your Honor, she confirmed the accuracy of that statement in her deposition.
Plaintiff?
Your Honor, we still object on hearsay grounds, and I haven't heard opposing counsel talk about an exception to the hearsay in this text.
Yeah, again, I mean, I would like to hear one because this is, she is on the stand. This is an out-of-court statement. It wasn't a sworn statement. Tell me how it gets in.
My apologies for that, Your Honor. Yes, of course. This text message fits under the exception of 8031, a present sense impression, because the witness was describing an event immediately after it happened. Your Honor, I realize that this was 24 hours later, but this was a 17-year-old high school student who had just witnessed a traumatic event. And surely 24 hours later, she was still experiencing that event, and therefore it falls under 8031. However, if Your Honor doesn't feel that it's a present sense impression, this is an appropriate circumstance for the residual hearsay exception under Rule 807, because we can rely on its authenticity, because the witness testified under a sworn deposition that this is her text message and that these are the words that she said immediately following the events on September 7th.
Okay, I'm going to overrule the objection on the latter ground that you set forth. So you can continue.
Yes, Your Honor. Now, Aubrey, you remember sending a text message on September 8th, right?
Yes.
And you would recognize that text message if I showed it to you again.
Yes,
And do you actually have Exhibit 22 in front of you?
I do.
You recognize this as the text that you sent on September 8th?
Yes.
It appears to be a fair and accurate copy of that text you sent.
Yes.
Hasn't been changed in any way.
It hasn't.
Your Honor, at this time, we offer Exhibit 22 into evidence.
Any objection?
Aside from the one we already made, Your Honor, no objection.
Okay, so I'm going to overrule that objection just for the record, and it is admitted.
Mr. Stirrup, there you go. You're ahead of me. Now, Aubrey, this is the text you just told us about, right?
Yes.
And in that text on September 8th, you said that Rory just collapsed out of nowhere, right?
Yes.
You said it was sudden.
Yes.
Now, Aubrey, on September 8th, you didn't tell anyone that you saw Rory being pale, did you?
No.
You didn't tell anybody a couple days later that you saw Rory struggling, did you?
No.
The first time you mentioned that Rory was struggling was 7 months later in your deposition, right?
I guess so.
And that was after Coach Taylor removed you from your starting position, isn't it?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. Pass the witness.
You've got 38:48 remaining. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, let me set your clock. Sorry, give me just one sec. Okay, so you've got 33:47 remaining. And plaintiff, whenever you're ready to begin redirect, I'll start the clock.
Yes, Your Honor. You were just asked a series of questions about a text message you sent. Do you recall that, Ms. Harrison?
Yes.
Can you explain the context of sending that text?
Yeah. I mean, I was still in shock. It was out of nowhere, not that, it was out of nowhere that one of my best friends died. No one expected that. And I mean, that I was in shock that had happened. And that's why I sent that text message.
And now you were asked a series of questions about how you didn't notify Coach Taylor about Rory looking unwell. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Why didn't you?
Because I was busy running Burma Road, and also whenever Coach noticed that someone wasn't feeling well, or someone told Coach that they weren't feeling well or they were tired, it would just make Coach more mad and make us do more drills. So I didn't want to make anyone suffer more, especially Rory, if I would have told him or told her.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
32:37 remaining.
May the witness be excused, Your Honor?
If there's nothing further from this witness, from the defense, then yes, the witness can be excused.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All righty. You can be excused. All right. So plaintiff, anything further for your case in chief?
Yes, Your Honor. This time, the plaintiff moves to enter the deposition of Jordan Street pursuant to stipulation 5 and also Federal Rule of Evidence 804A and B. Your Honor, we discussed any objections that opposing counsel had to this testimony coming in prior to trial, and we have agreed to redact 2 portions of the testimony. And aside from that, we wish to enter it in its entirety. Would Your Honor like to hear the portions that are excluded?
If you think it's important that I do.
No, Your Honor.
I think you're free to proceed. And just so everybody's tracking, the clock is stopping every time we make an objection. I just want to make that clear, that time is not running when you're objecting and we're having these discussions. Time isn't running right now when we're talking about court procedure, and I've got my countdown clock running live and accurately recording the time. If there's an issue with the timing, let me know, and I will try to resolve that as best I can. But my phone is live and tracking the time, and I'm giving you time signals as it runs. So let's move forward.
Thank you, Your Honor. Out of respect to the court's time, maybe we just read in select portions of the testimony from Jordan Street at this time?
Absolutely.
May I have my co-counsel, Ms. Wiggin, assist me in this?
Absolutely.
Your Honor, may I confirm something briefly?
Sure.
I had an understanding in our pretrial conference that opposing counsel had agreed to one of the exclusion areas in the deposition, but I was under the impression that they still intended to read in another portion that we had an objection to. And would Your Honor mind if I just confirm that portion will be excluded?
Sure.
Can I just confirm that we are excluding page 9, lines 4 through 10?
Yes, Your Honor, the plaintiff is excluding that.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
No worries. Whenever you're ready.
Yes, Your Honor. Reading from the deposition of Jordan Street, directing court and counsel to page 2, line 6. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Jordan Street.
Moving to line 15, question, do you have any children?
I did, my daughter Rory.
Moving to page 4, line 4, question, was Rory good?
Oh, Rory was a superb athlete. She'd gotten several scholarship offers from Division I programs to play soccer in college.
Moving to line 14, question, was soccer something the two of you shared?
You know, I played soccer in college, so I already loved the game.
Moving to page 6, line 12, Did she use drugs?
Absolutely not. If I had suspected that or seen any evidence of that, then there would have been serious consequences. Whenever Rory acted up in the past, even just threats of grounding and chores around the house proved to be effective deterrents. I have no idea why that test showed that, but it can't be accurate.
Moving to page 8, line 3, question. Do you know what a slide tackle is?
Sure.
Going down to line 9, question. Are slide tackles violent?
They can be. I mean, it's soccer, so a lot of the injuries are pretend acting. But anytime you're running full speed and you slide feet first at another player's legs, that can be a dangerous situation.
With that, Your Honor, the plaintiff is done reading in portions of Jordan Street's testimony.
Your Honor, at this time,
105 remaining. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to ask Your Honor's preference. I realize counsel has admitted or constructively read in the entire document, but would Your Honor allow us to bring certain portions?
Let's save that for your case in chief. Let's let her proceed with her case in chief, and then if you want to come back to this deposition, you can do so during your time.
Yes, Your Honor.
Anything further from plaintiff in their case in chief?
Yes, Your Honor. Prior to resting, we would like to read in certain portions of Exhibits 16 and 17, which are already in evidence. That is the expert report from Dr. McConaughey.
Perfect. And feel free to publish those if you'd like.
Yes, Your Honor.
Whenever you're ready, I'll start the clock.
Directing court and counsel to page 2 of Exhibit 16, the overview of opinions. Here is the opinion that I have reached in this case. Based on a reasonable degree of professional and/or medical certainty, Rory Street died as a result of heat exhaustion and/or heat stroke. Moving to page 3, same exhibit, second paragraph. Those symptoms are consistent with heat exhaustion and/or a heat stroke. Rory Street's pale skin, apparent weakness, potential dizziness, which is indicated by the fact that she felt funny and fell down on multiple occasions, fatigue, which is again indicated by continually falling down and struggling, potential abdominal pain, which is indicated by the groaning, and a rapid heartbeat, which is indicated by the chest pain, are all symptoms that are commonly associated with heat exhaustion and/or a heat stroke. Additionally, the description of Rory lying on the ground and convulsing is consistent with a seizure, which is a sign of a heat stroke. Additionally, there are several findings in the autopsy report that are consistent with heat exhaustion and/or heat stroke. First, the autopsy report indicates that Rory Street had cerebral edema. Cerebral edema is often caused by and is completely consistent with heat exhaustion and/or heat stroke. Also, the finding of muscle breakdown is also consistent with heat exhaustion and/or heat stroke. Moving to the last paragraph, same page, it is also my opinion within a reasonable degree of medical certainty that Rory Street's death was not a result of cocaine use. First, even if there was cocaine use on the day in question, there is no indication that Rory Street was a habitual user of cocaine, as indicated on the autopsy report by the fact that there was no irritation of the throat. Moving to page 4, the amount of cocaine found in Rory Street's system was only 60 nanograms per milliliter, which is a finding consistent with the ingestion of only a nominal amount of cocaine, or that there was a great deal of time between ingestion and testing. With that, Your Honor, the plaintiff rests.
Okay, 2905 remaining. All right, 3848 remaining for defense, and you can begin your case in chief however you'd like.
Your Honor, before I begin our case in chief, may I present a motion to the court?
Sure.
Your Honor, at this time, the defense moves for a judgment as a matter of law pursuant to Rule 50 of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure. Even viewing this motion in light most favorable to the non-moving party, it would still be proper for Your Honor to grant this motion because the plaintiff has failed to show that Coach Taylor breached her duty of care to the students. The testimony we heard today was that Coach Taylor had no idea that her student had ingested cocaine. Aubrey Saracen just testified that nobody told Coach Taylor what was going on, nobody alerted the coach to any issues that Rory may have been happening, and therefore Coach Taylor was acting within reason and conducting the practice in a normal manner. Therefore, they failed to show that there was actually a breach of any duty, and a motion in favor of the defense would be appropriate at this time.
Going to strongly disagree and deny that motion.
Yes, Your Honor. May we proceed?
Yes, whenever you're ready, and I'll start the timer again.
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the defense calls Coach Reese Taylor to the stand. Good morning. Could you please introduce yourself to the judge?
I'm Reese Taylor.
How old are you, Ms. Taylor?
I'm 47.
And what do you do for a living?
I am a health teacher and coach at Waco High School.
How long have you been doing that?
Years now. I've been coaching for about 26 years.
And were you Rory Street's coach?
I was, yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about what it was like to work with Rory?
Roy was one of my best athletes, a great kid. She had a lot of promise, and I enjoyed coaching her.
And was Rory at the practice on September 7th, 2018?
Yes.
How did that practice begin?
Well, just like any other practice, it was fine, but I kind of noticed that Rory didn't seem to be taking it seriously. She had, she was goofing off, really. So, I had to institute some drills with her.
Have players ever goofed off at your practice before?
Of course, they're high school girls. They goof off sometimes, and they know that when that happens, they're going to be disciplined. Just on the field, just like in the classroom, at home with their parents, there have to be consequences when they're not taking things seriously.
So I kind of want to break that down a little bit, Coach Taylor. What is one of the things you do to try to instill discipline in your kids?
Well, there's only so much I can do as a soccer coach. So it's soccer related. We do drills. Burma Road is one of a common drill that we do with the girls.
What's a Burma Road drill?
So Burma Road, it means you sprint 30 yards and then you dribble the ball as fast as you can for 30 yards. You take a shot at the goal, then you bear crawl the 60 yards back. And, Burma Road dates back. I did it when I was a high school kid at Waco High.
Have you ever had any trouble with your athletes running this drill?
No, I mean, they get tired, they don't necessarily love it, but that's kind of the point. It's meant to be discipline. So it's not a cakewalk, that's for sure. But any trouble, no one's ever been hurt by it or anything like that.
Did you have any of your athletes run the Burma Road drill on September 7th?
Yes, Rory and Aubrey.
Who went first?
I think Aubrey.
How was Aubrey running the Burma Road drill?
She was fine. She has a bit of an attitude sometimes, so she didn't really seem to be taking it so seriously.
Objection, Your Honor, as to what Aubrey was taking seriously. That is not relevant to today's matter. What's relevant is the defendant's conduct and Rory Street's conduct.
Sadra?
Yes, Your Honor. This is an appropriate opinion for the coach to make. It's rationally based on her own perception. She said it seemed to her like Aubrey wasn't taking it seriously. She coaches these players all the time. She can certainly attest to what she thinks their facial expressions or performance might mean.
I'm going to overrule the objection, and we can continue.
Now, Aubrey, you said you said, Coach Taylor, that you also sent Rory out to run this drill.
Yes, that's right.
Before you sent Rory, did you notice if Rory was struggling at all that day?
No, I mean, I wouldn't have sent her to do this drill if she'd been struggling. She just, like I said, she seemed to be goofing off and maybe her mind was elsewhere. And so I thought it was appropriate to do Burma Road with her.
And after Rory completed Burma Road, did you notice if she was struggling?
She still was goofing off. She wasn't taking it seriously, but she didn't seem to be any more tired than I usually see in my athletes after a drill like that.
Did you have her do anything else after running Burma Road?
Well, yeah, because like I said, she still didn't seem to be getting the point and taking practice seriously this day. So I had the other players line up. Rory had the ball, and the players would attempt to slide tackle the ball away from Rory.
Coach, you just said slide tackle. Could you tell us what a slide tackle is?
So a slide tackle is something that happens. You've seen it many times, probably in soccer games, when the opposing player tries to slide on the ground, literally, and kick the ball to get it out of our player's possession. In this case, Rory's possession.
Can a slide tackle ever be dangerous?
It sometimes can. Yeah.
Well, so, Coach, if they can be dangerous, why do you have your players run that drill in practice?
Well, like I said, they happen in games frequently. And so when something's even a little bit dangerous, I want to make sure my girls are as best prepared as they can be for when that happens in the game. So we practice those things. We want to make sure the conditions of the game and things that happen in the game are things we've prepared for as best we can.
And so can you tell us how the slide tackle drill was going on September 7th?
We were doing it. I think about 14, 15 of the girls did the slide tackle on Rory. And then, it happened.
Did you notice anything in particular about Rory during this drill?
No, I mean, she was worn out, but nothing out of the ordinary. It was a hot day, and that's the kind of stuff we prepare the girls for.
Well, Coach, how can you tell the difference between when one of your players is just worn out versus when something's really wrong?
Well, for one, usually the girls would tell me if something was wrong. And I think there's a line there when you can tell if someone's really not performing. But Rory on this day, she's, like I said, quite an athlete. And so she seemed to me to be the regular level of tired that I usually see her after a good, tough practice.
Coach Taylor, during this slide tackle drill, did you ever lay your hands on Rory?
No, absolutely not.
Did you ever yell at her?
No, I mean, besides the regular sort of encouraging, let's go ahead, do it, nothing yelling.
So while you were walking through this drill, did you ever notice signs that Rory was under some kind of medical emergency?
Absolutely not.
So what happened?
Well, she just dropped to the ground and started what looked like convulsing to me.
And what did you do after that?
I don't remember. It all had kind of happened so quick. I actually don't really remember.
Coach, did you ever have Rory do these drills to hurt her?
No, absolutely not. I mean, these girls, I care about their safety, and it's not all altruism. I want to win, and our team can't win if these girls are hurt or injured or sick. So if anything had indicated to me that Rory was not in tip-top shape, I would never have put her through these drills.
Did you have Rory do these drills because you were angry?
No, I wasn't angry at all. And it's high school girls. Sometimes they need discipline.
Coach, did Rory ever tell you that she wasn't feeling okay on September 7th?
No.
Did she ask for a break?
No.
Did she ask for water?
No.
And when are your athletes allowed to go get water?
Whenever they need it.
Did Rory ask to see the trainer?
No, not that I know of.
Did you at any point in time see signs of a medical emergency?
Never.
Did Aubrey Saracen ever tell you that her friend was in danger?
No.
What about the other players on the field that were there during that slide tackle drill? Did they ever tell you that they noticed something wrong?
No.
Coach, did you have an athletic trainer on site that day?
Yes.
Did that athletic trainer say that they noticed anything wrong with Rory?
No.
Did anyone on site that day tell you they thought that Rory could not handle the drills?
No.
Coach Taylor, have you ever asked a player to perform beyond their ability?
No. I'd push my girls, but, nothing that would put them in danger.
Coach, when Rory walked onto the field that afternoon, did you know that she had cocaine in her system?
Absolutely not.
Thank you, Coach. Your Honor, pass the witness.
27:46 remaining. Give me 1 second to reset the timer. All right. 29:05 remaining for cross whenever you're ready.
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Taylor. Let's talk about your role on the soccer field. Now, you're in charge of the field during soccer practice, right?
Yes.
As a coach, you have the responsibility to your players on the field.
Yes.
The responsibility to look out for their safety, right?
Yes.
Safety of your players is supposed to be your number one priority.
It is.
Over winning games.
Yes. And they go hand in hand.
Safety and winning goes hand in hand.
Absolutely. You can't win a game if someone's injured or sick, like I said. So it doesn't benefit me for any of my girls to not be safe.
So going back to my question, you would prioritize safety over winning a game, right?
Of course.
You would prioritize safety over discipline, right?
Of course.
Now, keeping a player safe includes making sure they're healthy.
Yes.
And on top of being a soccer coach, you're also a health teacher at Waco High.
Yes.
Players' health on the field can be a concern in hot weather, right?
Yes.
Now, on direct, you said there's not much you can do as a soccer coach, right? You said that on direct?
Right. In practice, if I'm disciplining, it's going to be soccer related.
Right. Let's talk about what you can do in practice as a soccer coach. If you see a player struggling on the field, you can help them, right?
Right.
You can ask them how they're feeling.
Yes.
You can get them water.
Yes.
You can get them medical attention.
Yes.
Call a trainer over.
Yes.
You can stop practice.
Yes.
Take a break.
Yeah.
All of that is under your control as the head coach on the field, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, we can agree that varsity soccer is a competitive sport, right?
Absolutely.
And earlier you talked about winning, right?
Mm-hmm.
You like to win.
Yes.
Winning is a measurement of success of your team, right?
Yes. And I mean, my girls want to win too.
But talking about you only, you like to win, right, Coach?
Yes.
Now, I want to talk to you about the safety guidelines in your industry. Now, you attend coach clinics several times a year, right?
That's right.
And that's to keep up on the latest coaching techniques?
That's right.
To keep up on best practices in your industry?
Sometimes it's industry standard. Sometimes, just tips and tricks, things like that.
Well, with all of this, you make sure to keep up on the latest and best techniques in your industry, right?
Yes.
You understand that's important.
Mm-hmm.
This includes, is that a yes?
Yes, that's a yes.
That includes attending the annual meeting of Texas high school soccer coaches, right?
Yes.
You're a Texas high school soccer coach?
I am.
You would agree that attending this meeting is important.
Yes,
So you attended it on June 15th, 2018.
I did.
And that's before Rory Street died on your field, right?
Yeah.
Your Honor, at this time, I'm directing court and counsel to Exhibit 11. Do you have that in front of you, Ms. Taylor?
1 second.
Sure, just let me know when you have that in front of you.
Okay, I have it.
Now, you recognize that 3-page document as slides from the presentation you attended on June 15th, right?
Yes,
You recognize those because you've seen them before.
I have.
And those slides are in the same or substantially the same condition as when you last saw them?
Yeah.
Your Honor, at this point, the plaintiff offers Exhibit 11 into evidence.
Time is stopped. Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor. Hearsay. May I be heard?
You may.
Your Honor, these PowerPoint slides contain out-of-court statements that are going to be offered for the truth of the matter asserted therein. We just heard counsel state that she was talking about industry standards and that she's going to use these PowerPoint slides for the truth that what is contained within them is in fact an industry standard. Therefore, that's inadmissible hearsay.
Response.
Your Honor, we're not using these slides to show the truth of the matter asserted, that those guidelines are in fact industry safety practices. We're using them to show rather the notice that this witness was under, that she knew that there were industry guidelines and she ignored those guidelines, and further the effect or lack of effect that these had on this witness. Your Honor, the witness just testified that these were important. It was important to keep up to date with what was going on in her industry. And so we're merely using this exhibit to demonstrate that she ignored what other people in the industry were doing.
Brief rebuttal.
Yes, Your Honor. While opening statements aren't conclusive evidence, counsel did suggest several times in opening that she was going to use these to establish the industry standard. In fact, in her argument just a moment ago, she said that these were industry guidelines. That's not only a mischaracterization of the evidence, Your Honor, but it also goes to show that she is in fact using them for the truth that these are the industry guidelines. Therefore, it's inadmissible hearsay.
I'm going to overrule the objection to this extent. She can testify about PowerPoint, what she saw, purely for the purpose of notice. In your closing argument, don't call it an industry standard unless you have some other way of establishing that it is in fact an industry standard. Otherwise, it's perfectly permissible to talk about what she did or didn't know without ascribing any value to it other than the value she herself ascribes in her testimony. With that, you can continue.
Yes, Your Honor. Now I'm referring you to what's in evidence exhibit 11, Ms. Taylor. Now these slides provide instructions for coaches like you, right?
Instructions, I would call them more like tips, things like that.
So these slides provide tips for coaches like you.
Yes.
Tips on what to do with your players during high temperatures.
Yeah.
Now we can agree that you hold practices in high temperatures, right?
Definitely.
On September 7th, it was a hot day.
Yes.
You're aware it was above 100 degrees that day.
I think that's right, yeah.
Now, the tip here states that you should give a player a 5-minute break every 15 minutes when the temperature is above 100 degrees, right?
5-minute break. Yes.
You didn't give any breaks to Rory during that practice, did you?
Well, we don't have set breaks. Like I said, the water's on the side and the girls are, can go get it when they feel that they need it. We just don't. So this isn't exactly how we implement this. We don't have set breaks.
So that's a no to my question. You didn't set any breaks for Rory during September 7th, during the practice.
That's right.
Now, it also said, the tip here says that you should give your players a break in the shade, right?
That's right.
That's to allow players to get out of the sun for a few minutes, right?
I suppose.
And we talked about earlier how health is a concern during high temperatures, right?
Yes.
Now, there was no shade on the field on September 7th, right?
No.
You could have put up a tent on the soccer field. You didn't do that, right?
No.
Now let's talk about what happened with Rory at practice on September 7th. You were frustrated that day by her performance.
Yes.
You believe she was goofing off.
She was, yeah.
You believe that she wasn't listening to you at that practice.
That's right.
Now, Coach Taylor, nothing gets you angrier than a player not listening to you during practice, right?
No, I mean, it doesn't get me angry. It's frustrating because I'm trying to coach the girls, but I mean, I get it. I was a high school girl once myself on the soccer team. It's fun to play with your friends and hang out. So I don't get angry, but I discipline them.
Well, in fact, nothing heats you up quicker than a player on your field not listening to you. Isn't that right?
Sure, I can get heated up when a player doesn't listen to me.
And when you get heated up, you can start yelling, right?
I've raised my voice.
And you yelled at Rory that day on September 7th.
Probably. I probably raised my voice, yeah.
You don't remember if you yelled at her?
I yelled at Rory.
And that was after she wasn't listening to you, right?
That's right. I wouldn't have yelled at her had there been,
Now, after yelling at Rory, you made her go and do some drills, right?
Yes.
You wanted to teach Rory a lesson at practice that day.
Teach her a lesson. I wanted her to be taking practice seriously.
So first you made Rory run Burma Road.
Yes.
And that involves running or sprinting 30 yards, right?
Yes.
Sprinting means running as fast as you can.
Yes.
And then it involves dribbling the ball for 30 yards.
Yes.
And then it involves crawling on the ground like a bear for 60 yards.
Yes.
And this was all outside in the heat, right?
Yes.
Now, Rory was to keep repeating this until you told her to stop.
Right.
And while Rory was over doing her Burma Road drills, you didn't go over to watch her, right?
No.
You were back at the scrimmage on the soccer field.
Correct.
During the time you were at the soccer field, you didn't have your trainer go over and watch Rory, right?
That's right.
But you do have a trainer on the field to help you pay attention to players,
Yes.
to pay attention to their safety.
Correct.
In fact, you believe that it would be irresponsible for a coach to not have a trainer paying attention to the players on the field, right?
Yes.
Because you can't pay attention to every single player at the same time.
Correct.
Now, you don't know, sitting here today, that if trainer Merriweather was paying attention to Rory while she was doing this drill, right?
I'm not aware.
Now, after you sent Rory to run Burma Road, you weren't satisfied by how she was doing this drill.
That's right.
You came up with a new way to discipline her, right?
That's right.
You made Rory do a slide tackle drill.
Yes.
To be clear, this is a drill that you had invented that very day.
Well, the girls practice slide tackles all the time.
I'm going to bring you back to my question. That was a drill that you invented that very day, right?
Yeah.
You had never done that drill before prior to September 7th.
No, not exactly like that.
Now, before ordering Rory to do a drill that you had never tested, you didn't ask her if she was okay, right?
No.
You didn't ask her if she needed a break?
No, she appeared to me to be just how she always is, kind of worn out, but so I didn't find it to be necessary.
Seeing that she was kind of worn out, you didn't ask Rory if she needed some water before you made her do a drill that you'd never tried before, right?
That's right.
Now, we can agree that this drill that you invented involved a lot of physical contact.
Yes.
You said on direct, it's dangerous, right?
It can be.
It can be because Rory could fall to the ground during the drill, right?
And that's why we practice it.
So to be clear, the drill is the practice, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So during this practice, she could fall to the ground?
It's possible, yes.
Now, you had the whole team line up to start tackling Rory.
Slide tackle, not like a football tackle.
A soccer tackle, right?
Right.
Which involves...
So just saying tackle, I don't think really, that doesn't really convey what it is. They're aiming for the ball, not Rory's body.
To be clear, the ball is located at Rory's feet, right?
Yes.
And when a player slides in to try and tackle someone to get the ball away, they can hit their feet.
Yes.
They can hit the player's hips.
Yes.
In fact, you saw Rory fall down that day.
Yes.
After being slide tackled by the drill that you invented, right?
That's right.
Now, you mentioned on direct that this was something that happens in a game.
Definitely.
Now, in a game, a player doesn't get tackled 14 or 15 times in a row. Right, coach?
That's right. Yes. So, what they say, practice makes perfect. So the idea is, plan statistically for the worst, and then hopefully in the game, that's not the one that happens.
Now, the worst here was that you had Rory face this tackle 15 times, right?
That's right.
Now, in your 26 years of coaching, you've never had another student be slide tackled 15 times in a row, right?
I don't think so.
You've never seen another coach do this sort of drill either, right?
I don't think so.
Now, you saw Rory struggling during this drill.
Struggling. I mean, it was a challenging drill, but she, was a top tier athlete. And I mean, she got right back up and kept at it.
I'm going to direct you back to my question, Coach Taylor. During the drill, you saw Rory struggling, right?
No, she wasn't struggling.
Is it your testimony today that you did not see Rory struggle during the drill?
I guess I don't know what you mean by struggling. She, she didn't love it. Like I said, it's not a cakewalk.
Well, during this time that you could tell that she didn't love it, you didn't offer her any water, right?
No.
You didn't give her a break even then?
No.
You just kept having the team continue to tackle her?
Slide tackle her.
Slide tackle her?
Yes.
Now, after she was slide tackled for the 15th time, she collapsed onto the ground, right?
That's right.
She started to shake,
Yeah.
convulse.
Yes.
She appeared to be having a seizure.
Yes.
And even at that point, you didn't run up to her and give her any water, right?
Like I said, I don't remember.
You don't remember what you did after one of your players was lying on the ground, seizing in the middle of your soccer practice?
No, it was shocking. I don't remember exactly what I did.
No further questions, Your Honor.
15:48 remaining.
Brief redirect, Your Honor.
Yeah, just give me 1 second to set your clock.
Sorry.
Okay. 27:46 remaining, and whenever you start talking, I'll start the timer.
Yes, Your Honor. Coach Taylor, I want to talk to you about that slideshow you were just asked about a few minutes ago. And on that slideshow where it said take breaks every 15 minutes, was that a requirement?
No.
So how did you decide to do breaks at your practice?
Like I said, there's water on the side and the girls feel free to go get it when they need it. We just don't have instituted breaks most of the time.
So if a player asked you to take a break, what would you have said?
Yes.
Did Rory ever ask you for a break?
No.
At any point in time, did Rory tell you that she was struggling?
No.
Did she tell you she didn't think she could keep doing the drill?
No. In fact, she kept doing it. I mean, she seemed to be fine.
At any point in time, were you trying to hurt your athlete?
Absolutely not. I'm responsible for these girls' safety. I mean, it's of the utmost importance to me. I would never try to hurt any of my athletes.
Thank you, Coach. Your Honor, pass the witness.
26:34 remaining. Anything further from this witness?
Nothing further from the plaintiff, Your Honor.
Okay. Can the witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Okay, anything further on defense's case in chief?
Yes, Your Honor. At this point in time, may I go back to the deposition of Jordan Street and reread certain portions to bring to Your Honor's attention?
Absolutely.
Mr. Stirrup? Your Honor, I'm going to begin reading from page 3, line 1.
Okay, whenever you start talking, I'll start the timer.
Were you at practice that day?
No, I was at work.
So do you have any information or knowledge about what happened that day?
No, other than what I've heard from others about what happened, but I didn't see it.
Now on page 5 at line 12, did you push Rory to be an athlete?
I don't know if I would use the word push. I encouraged Rory to work hard at sports and at everything else in her life. I taught Rory to never show weakness and to never complain. I wanted her to be tough, to play through the pain, because that's what makes a champion. Rory was tough because I made her tough.
Now on page 7 at line 3, do you believe that discipline is important for a kid?
Yes, 100% yes. You know, my granddaddy always said, spare the rod, spoil the child. And I believe in that. You can't let them get away with being lazy and entitled. You have to keep them in line.
Now on page 9 at line 11, did you have any part in Coach Taylor being hired?
Yes, I was instrumental in getting Coach Taylor hired. I wish I hadn't been, but I was.
Why did you want Coach Taylor?
We wanted a winning coach. I wanted Rory to be coached by a winner. And that's what we wanted. And we thought that Coach Taylor was the right person for that job. Looking back now, it was obviously a huge mistake on my part.
Your Honor, that concludes our portion of reading in the portions of the deposition of Jordan Street.
2457 remaining. Anything further from your case in chief?
Yes, Your Honor. Now we would like to read in certain portions of the deposition of Jess Merriweather. May I proceed?
Man, when you begin talking, I'll start the timer.
Starting from page 2, line 6. Good morning. Would you please state your name for the record?
Hello there. My name is Jess Merriweather.
How old are you, Jess?
I am 28 years old.
Where do you live?
I live in Waco, Texas.
How long have you lived in Waco?
Just a couple of years now. I grew up in Houston, then I went to Texas A&M for undergrad, and then I got a master's degree in sports training from A&M as well. After that, I worked for a couple of years at another high school in College Station before I got the job at Waco High.
What is your job at Waco High?
I am an athletic trainer, and I also teach health.
What is the job of an athletic trainer at a high school?
We have various teams and activities at the school that involve some level of physical activity and competition, everything from football to soccer to volleyball to cheerleading and drill team. As a trainer, I work with the students that participate in those activities to keep them healthy and in shape and to treat any injuries that they have.
Now reading from page 4, line 2. Who is Coach Taylor?
Coach Taylor is the varsity soccer coach at Waco High.
Have you worked with Coach Taylor?
I have.
In what capacity?
As a trainer. So I've attended soccer practices and soccer games where Coach Taylor was the coach. I've worked with Coach Taylor in order to treat injured players, and I've worked with Coach Taylor just overseeing the students during practices and games.
Do you have any role in designing drills for practices?
No, that's all Coach Taylor.
Do you have any role in disciplining players?
No, that is all Coach Taylor as well. I'm certainly there overseeing any on-field discipline that takes place, but I'm not directing that discipline or deciding who should be disciplined.
Do you know who Rory Street was?
Yeah, I knew Rory. Very sad what happened.
How did you know Rory?
Well, she was a varsity soccer player, so I worked with her as a trainer for the varsity soccer team, just like any other player.
Now reading from page 5, line 15. What about cocaine? How does that affect an athlete?
Cocaine is particularly dangerous. It killed Len Bias and Don Rogers. Diego Maradona had a 20-year addiction that derailed his career. Darryl Strawberry and Dwight Gooden also come to mind.
Now reading from page 8, line 8. Were you at practice the day Rory died?
I was.
Did you see Rory running Burma Road?
I saw Rory over on Burma Road, but I wasn't watching her closely.
Did you see Rory during the slide tackling drill?
Again, I saw it was happening, and I certainly saw parts of it, but I didn't watch it closely.
What were you doing while all of this was going on?
I was taping another student's ankle about 40 yards away.
At any time, did you see Rory stumbling, faltering, or slowing down in a way that would have indicated she was in trouble?
No, not at all.
Was Rory sweating hard?
I mean, yes, but everyone was, including me. It was a really hot day.
Did Rory ever say anything to you about feeling bad that day?
Nope, never said anything to me. And here's the thing. I'm there to take care of those players, and they know it. I'm kind of a combination trainer and guardian to the team, so they trust me, and I trust them to tell me if something is wrong or if they're hurting. Rory didn't say a word, and she would have. Rory was a tough kid, but She knew her limits and would let me or coach know when she needed water.
Are players allowed to get water when they want it?
Yes, all they have to do is ask, even if we're not on a water break.
Now reading down the page on line 21. Based on your knowledge and experience in the field of physical education and sports training, do you think that Coach Taylor's means of disciplining Rory Street on the day in question were
Objection, Your
reasonable
Honor.
or appropriate?
Objection, Your Honor.
Time has stopped, and it stopped as soon as you said objection. You are at 20:36. You may begin with the objection. Tell me the basis.
First, Your Honor, we discussed this testimony being read in prior to trial, and counsel told us that she would not be reading in this portion as it is an improper opinion for this witness to make. As such, that is a delay in the objection, but as such, this should not be read in from this witness. This was part of our motions in limine, and based on counsel's representation, we did not make this at the beginning of this trial.
Ms. Edrick?
Your Honor, I apologize. That was not my understanding of the pretrial agreement, and I apologize to the court for any confusion. May I respond on the grounds of the improper opinion?
Sure. It sounds like this was something y'all agreed on, but I'll entertain your response.
Yeah, and Your Honor, I apologize if I misheard something. But the question that elicits the testimony regarding the appropriateness of the practices on field, Jess Merriweather is a trained athletic trainer. She's been a health professor for years. She's been around these girls and observing practices. Certainly, she could testify to whether or not the practices that occurred on September 7th were usual. And if I may proffer, Your Honor, that's all she's going to testify to, that these were usual. She doesn't go any further or beyond that.
Ms. Fitzpatrick?
Your Honor, this is an improper lay opinion. It involves specialized knowledge and technical knowledge. This witness is going into whether or not the coach's discipline was reasonable, appropriate, orthodox, usual. These are all things that an expert could be called to testify about.
I'm going to stop you. I mean, there's some big differences there, right? What is best practices is very different than what is usual. And that would be proper lay opinion. If you have somebody that's working consistently with someone and their sensory observations lead them to conclude that this is a usual course of behavior, that is something we are all equipped to do and doesn't require any expert testimony. Let's do this. We'll split the baby this way. I will sustain the objection insofar as you are going to go into any sort of expert testimony. And Ms. Fitzpatrick, I will encourage you to raise the objection again if she starts heading the direction, or if there's something in the deposition that you're going to read in that is something to the effect of, all soccer coaches do this, or the best practice for a soccer coach is to do X. Insofar as the testimony is limited to this was usual for Coach Taylor, because they are work colleagues and this individual observed what Coach Taylor usually did, that of course is permissible, and I will overrule the objection insofar as that's what it's seeking to exclude here. Fine?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Yes, Your Honor.
Let's continue. As soon as you start talking, I will start the timer. You have 20:36.
Yes, Your Honor. Picking up on page 9, line 21. Based on your knowledge and experience in the field of physical education and sports training, do you think that Coach Taylor's means of disciplining Rory Street on the day in question were reasonable or appropriate?
I don't think they were unusual at all.
Your Honor, that concludes our portion of the deposition of Jess Merriweather.
You have 2013. Anything further for your case in chief?
Yes, Your Honor, we do have one more item to bring to the court's attention. If I can direct Your Honor's attention to the previously admitted exhibit number 18, that's the expert. Yes, Your Honor, for the expert report of Spencer London. In that expert report, Mr. London stated that Rory Street's death was caused, at least in part, by the use of cocaine. He went on to state that cocaine use can lead to the following symptoms: constricted blood vessels, nausea and vomiting, raised body temperature and blood pressure, fast or irregular heartbeat, tremors and muscle twitches, and chest pains. Finally, Mr. London concluded that the autopsy report in this case indicates that Rory Street's heart showed signs of myocarditis, which is an inflammation or swelling of the heart muscle. Myocarditis is one of those physical symptoms associated with cocaine use. Based on the foregoing, Mr. Spencer said, "It is my opinion with a reasonable degree of medical probability that Rory Street's death was caused, at least in part, by cocaine." Your Honor, that concludes our portion of Exhibit 18. And at this time, the defense rests our case in chief, and we would renew our motion for a judgment as a matter of law. I apologize, Your Honor. I think you might be.
Time was paused as soon as you said you rested. You've got 1852 remaining. Are there any new grounds for that motion? Or is it just the same grounds that you?
On the same grounds as before, Your Honor.
That is denied. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and give y'all a brief 5-minute recess. Scoring judges, if you need to use the restroom during this time, like I said, please turn on your camera. So I'm aware that you're not in the room and we won't resume without you, but let's try to keep this a tight 5 minutes. If everyone's back before then, we'll begin as soon as everybody is ready. So my clock says 10:40, 10:45, let's get this rolling.
Your Honor,
Yes, ma'am.
may I reserve any remaining time for rebuttal?
Of course, of course. Let me get everything set back up real quick. Hold on. Okay, so we got just a time announcement, 15:48 for plaintiff, 18:52 for defense. Anything that you don't use, we'll just roll over to rebuttal. Okay, so 15:48. Like I said, Ms. Fitzpatrick, what I'll do, I'm not going to give you any hand gestures until you hit the 10, just because I don't have any fingers beyond the 10 that I have. And I think it's going to get confusing if I'm doing something like this for 15. So once you hit 10, I'll give you 10. I'll hold it up for a few seconds, 9, so on and so forth. Once you hit 1, I'll give you 1. I'll give you half. And then once we hit 10 seconds, I'll give you, 10, 9, all the way down. And then I'll cut you off at 0 just by standing. I'm not going to shout out. That way you can finish the last word that you're saying or whatever. Does that sound copacetic to everybody?
Yes, Your Honor.
All righty. Okay, so 15:48 remaining S. I think I've got all my scoring judges. In fact, I know the only one that left, I think, was Louis, so everybody's back. As soon as you start talking, I will begin the timer starting at 15:48.
Yes, Your Honor. You're useless on the field, so I might as well run you until you pass out. Those are not the words of a reasonable person. That is not what a person who is charged with protecting her player's safety and her player's health should be saying. But those words, run you until you pass out, is what the defendant told Rory Street moments before she collapsed during soccer practice, shaking, seizing, and then dying on the field. Rory Street died because of the negligent actions of her coaches and her coach, Coach Taylor, the person responsible for her on that field. The defendant prioritized discipline over safety, winning over health, and Rory Street was a victim of this. What occurred on the defendant's soccer field on September 7th was egregious. And it was preventable, and it was negligent. Your Honor, we have proven by a preponderance of the evidence that the defendant was negligent in this matter. She had a duty to conduct practice in a reasonable manner that protected the health of her players and the safety of her players. Instead, you heard today that Coach Taylor breached this duty by going against what she should have done to protect these students. She didn't give Rory any breaks, any water breaks during this practice. She didn't provide her with adequate supervision. And she ordered Rory to perform physically grueling drills that she had never tested before and that were unsafe. This all resulted in the death of my client's daughter and any hopes that Rory had of a future. Now let's talk about the ways in which the defendant breached her duty to conduct practice in a reasonable manner. You want to make no mistake about this. This was not a regular soccer practice. You heard the defendant, she was angry. Nothing gets the defendant more heated than a player who wasn't listening, and she believed Rory was not listening to her that day. She was goofing off. And that's because the defendant's job depends on winning. If her team isn't winning, she's not doing a good job. But the cost of winning should not be the safety of high school players on her soccer field. So that's why you heard when her star player wasn't doing what she wanted her to do, the defendant lost her temper and decided to punish her by having her run drills. First, the Burma Road drill. This was done in over 100-degree weather, and this was a drill consisting of sprinting, dribbling, and then crawling on the ground like an animal. This was a drill designed to punish Rory Street, to exhaust her. And that drill did exactly what it was intended to do. Now, you heard today that Rory was visibly in pain. She was pale, and she told Rory she was having chest pains. She was visibly exhausted, and she was struggling, which the defendant admitted to you today on cross, although begrudgingly. The defendant's response to seeing Rory struggle through the drill wasn't compassion or worry or concern. Instead, you heard that she invented a brand new form of punishment: death by slide tackles. Now, the defendant opened today that something was off in this practice, something was different. This is what was different in this practice. The defendant introduced a brand new drill that had never been tested before, that she'd never seen before. And this drill was a form of punishment that she gave to Rory Street. You heard how one slide tackle alone is dangerous, but 15, one after the other? That's egregious, Your Honor. Despite the defendant trying to claim this was a normal part of soccer, when confronted on cross, she had to admit that it's not normal in a game to have players line up and tackle a person 15 times in a row, over and over and over again. And that's because this is beyond the bounds of a reasonable soccer drill. And that's why it hasn't been done before. The defendant admitted to you that these are hard tackles that often involve lots of physical contact. They were dangerous. Sliding into Rory Street again and again and again, knocking her down. You heard her teammate Aubrey tell you that after the first one, the defendant had to yank Rory back up because she couldn't even get back up on her own. 15 of these in a row, it was a death sentence. All of this was done in the scorching, unforgiving heat that day, and even an athlete as strong as Rory may have been was going to crumble. This wasn't a learning experience for Rory. This was punishment, pure and simple. And the defendant admitted to you today on cross. She told you she wanted to make an example out of Rory, and instead, she killed her. Now let's talk some more about the heat on September 7th. You heard today it was over 100 degrees, and you can see here that's what occurred. Now, we're not arguing that soccer practice should be canceled when weather goes above 100 degrees. It does get hot here in Texas in September, and we understand that. So coaches should adapt to that heat in order to ensure their players' safety. You heard about the coaches' clinic that the defendant attended back in June, before Rory died. Now, the defendant called these tips, but the defendant ignored all these tips, as she called them. Your Honor, if there's something that can help make your players safer in heat, you should do that. But the defendant decided to ignore it and not implement any of this. The defendant should have given mandated breaks every 15 minutes for 5 minutes. You heard that she received absolutely no breaks in that over 100-degree weather, running those drills over and over again. Even between the two drills, nothing, no break. And there was no place, no shade for Rory to take a break out of that sweltering heat. She went from one drill until the other. You saw the diagram of the soccer field today, not a single tree for her to take shelter under. And the defendant didn't bother to put up a tent or anything to help this. The defendant didn't bother to do the bare minimum to keep her player safe. Now, how do we know that the breach of the defendant's duty caused my client's daughter's death? Well, that's because you heard from Dr. McConaughey, our expert, and the only medical doctor that you heard from today. She told you it was heat exhaustion that killed Rory. Now, you learned that the cerebral edema and the muscle breakdown that was found during Rory's autopsy is indicative of heat stroke and heat exhaustion, as were the symptoms we heard about today: pale skin, weakness, fatigue, sweating, seizures. These all point to heat exhaustion and heat stroke. Now, Aubrey told you today that she saw these signs during the practice, visible signs that Rory wasn't okay and that she was in pain. You know who didn't bother with these signs? The defendant. The defendant chose to ignore the fact that his player was struggling. But you must not ignore that in coming to your verdict today. If Aubrey could see that Rory was struggling and was in pain, the defendant could see it. She just chose to ignore it. And that is negligence. Now, rather than take responsibility, the defendant wants to blame a nominal amount of cocaine that was found during an autopsy. But, Your Honor, cocaine was not responsible for the actions of the defendant. You can't blame cocaine for the defendant ignoring safety on the field. You can't blame cocaine for forcing players to run around in scorching heat without any water breaks. And you can't blame cocaine for the defendant's failure to supervise Rory while she was doing the Burma Road drills. You cannot blame cocaine for Rory's death. Now, all the defendant could bring you to substantiate this claim is a word of a toxicologist, their expert in the matter. Mr. London's entire expert report was essentially speculating that because there was a nominal amount of cocaine found in Rory's blood, that must have been the cause of death. But even Mr. London, their hired gun, could only blame the cocaine in part, because he couldn't get past the heat stroke and all the symptoms related to that. And that's what the defendant caused. Our expert, a cardiologist, a medical doctor with degrees in biology and chemistry, told you unequivocally that it was not cocaine that caused Rory's death on September 7th. Your Honor, my client, Ms. Street, lost her daughter to heat stroke and heat exhaustion because of the defendant's negligence. The defendants prioritized discipline over safety and winning over health. And Rory Street was a victim of this negligence. Rory was the defendant's responsibility on that soccer field, and therefore you must hold the defendant accountable for Rory's death. That's why, Your Honor, when using this verdict form to determine negligence, we ask that you answer question 1. Did the negligence, if any, of the persons named below proximately cause the accident in question? As to Reese Taylor, the answer is yes. As to Rory Street, the answer should be no. Reese Taylor, the defendant, is responsible for the death of Rory Street. It was her drills, they were her decisions that killed Rory. She failed to adequately supervise Rory. She failed to provide enough water breaks from the scorching heat that day, and she forced her to perform a brand new drill that had never been tested. All of this resulted in the death of my client's daughter. As such, you should find the defendant liable.
$454 remaining for rebuttal. Okay, defense, you have 1852. As soon as you start talking, I'll begin the timer. Same signals.
May it please the court? Something was different. At the beginning of the case, you may have been wondering what was different. Well, we've learned today that the something that was different was Rory Street and the cocaine she had in her system on September 7th. Now, the plaintiff just got up here a moment ago and tried to tell you that all of this was Coach Reese Taylor's fault. It was the drills she ran and the heat she had her kids work out in, and that she just wanted to win. But, Your Honor, we know now that this isn't what happened. We know that Coach Taylor ran a practice just like usual. We heard that she had no idea that cocaine was in Rory Street's system. You heard from Coach Taylor that this practice started off like normal, and while yes, she saw Rory struggling, that's usual. It's usual for athletes running out in the heat to sweat sometimes, to be tired after running for a little while, but Coach Taylor told us that she didn't see anything that would make her think there's a medical emergency. Jess Merriweather, the athletic trainer, didn't see anything that looked like a medical emergency. Aubrey Saracen didn't say that anything was wrong with Rory. And Rory didn't tell Coach that anything was wrong. It was during that drill that Rory suddenly and out of nowhere collapsed. So the players rush over. Coach rushes over, trying to figure out what's wrong, what they can do to help. And it was too late. Coach Taylor is shocked. She's trying to figure out what went wrong. What about this day was different? Your Honor, something was different. And we learned today what that was. Cocaine. Cocaine that was in Rory's system. Cocaine that caused her heart muscles to swell. Cocaine that raised her body temperature. Cocaine that caused her blood vessels to constrict. Cocaine that was killing her. It was the cocaine in Rory's system that caused her heart to fail. Not Coach Taylor. But despite all of this, the plaintiff is still pursuing a wrongful death action against Rory Taylor. And they had to prove a couple of things to you today to be successful. They had to prove to you that Coach Taylor owed a duty of care to her teammate or her athletes, that she breached that duty, and that breach was the cause of Rory's death. But they haven't been able to do that because it was the cocaine, not the coach, that caused Rory's death. Now, Your Honor, I want to be clear. We are not saying that Coach Taylor didn't owe a duty of care to her athletes. Of course she did. But that duty was to keep her athletes safe within reason, to control things that she knew about. But the plaintiff just got up here and painted this picture of a tyrant coach who wanted to push her kids over the line and wouldn't stop until she got what she wanted. That's not the coach we saw on the stand today. The coach on the stand today told you that, yes, she's tough, but she doesn't want her players to get hurt. Now, Your Honor, you don't have to like Coach Taylor. You don't have to like her coaching style or think she wasn't harsh or think she was a bit old school. All of that's okay because the law doesn't call that unreasonable. Coach Taylor told us that during practices, she kept out water for her athletes. They could take breaks whenever they needed, and she always kept an athletic trainer on site. And still, the plaintiff just got up here a moment ago and told you that Coach was running some drills that were unreasonable. So I want to take a minute to talk about some of those drills. They told you that running Burma Road, that was out of the question. That running for 30 yards back and forth, well, that's just not something you should do. Your Honor, let's put into context what was actually happening. These are elite soccer athletes. Athletes that have a goal to make it to the state championship. And in Texas, that's a tall order. Of course, practices were going to be demanding and difficult. That's why Coach has them conditioned in that heat for weeks prior to the season. so their bodies can get used to it so they're not surprised by it on game day. These are athletes in the prime of their health. This is what they do. Well, then they told you that Burma Road, well, that couldn't be reasonable because coach said, I'm going to make you run Burma Road until you pass out. And Miss Fitzpatrick, she's talked a lot about that statement today. She told you that that's how you know that Coach Taylor wasn't being safe. Your Honor, think about when Aubrey Saracen was on the stand. She asked Aubrey Saracen, well, did Coach ever say what he meant or what she meant when she said that? She said no. So then I asked Aubrey Saracen, do you know what Coach meant when he said run until you pass out? You remember what she told us? She told us, oh, that's just Coach being Coach. Didn't really mean it. I just shrugged it off. The plaintiff just got up here and told you that their entire case is based on this one statement. But the players didn't even think Coach meant it? Your Honor, that just doesn't make sense. So then the plaintiff said, well, if it wasn't Burma Road, certainly what made the coach's actions unreasonable was having these players practice out in the heat, not giving them enough water breaks. And they made a big deal about this PowerPoint from the Coaches Association. Now, this PowerPoint we heard today, these aren't requirements of soccer coaches. They're techniques. They're suggestions. And this association, yes, it suggests that coaches give their players water breaks every 15 minutes. But we heard from Coach Taylor today. I asked her, so Coach, why didn't you give your players water breaks every 15 minutes? She told us, we had a different policy. We wanted these players to be able to take a break whenever they needed it. All they had to do was ask. Your Honor, that's reasonable. So if it wasn't Burma Road and it wasn't the heat and the water, well, then the plaintiff tells you it's got to be this slide tackle drill. This was that something different that happened on September 8th that caused Rory to go over the edge. Your Honor, think back to what we learned about slide tackles today. They are a normal part of a soccer game. They happen every game. And we also learned that these slide tackles, they can be a bit dangerous. But Coach told us that there's no way around them. I know they're going to happen, so I've got to make sure that my kids know how to do them right, so that they know how not to injure another player, so they know how to keep themselves safe. That's why she ran the slide tackle drill on September 7th, so she could teach her kids how to do it safely. But then you heard from Aubrey Saracen, and Aubrey Saracen told you, well, no, during the slide tackle drill, Coach really got out of hand. Coach was yelling at Rory and picked her up by the back of the jersey, and that just wasn't usual. Your Honor, Aubrey Saracen was 20 yards away during the slide tackle drill. Aubrey Saracen wasn't there during the slide tackle drill. And that's really important, Your Honor, because the plaintiff's entire case is built around what Aubrey Saracen said happened. The expert testimony of their doctor is based on what Aubrey Saracen said. That's a problem for a couple of reasons. Because Aubrey told you, well, it was sudden what happened to Rory. She told you, I never told anyone that Rory was struggling. But then all of a sudden, in her deposition 7 months later, she talks about this big bad coach who didn't see that her player was struggling. Your Honor, we heard from Coach Taylor about what happened on September 7th. She told us that Rory seemed fine. She told us, I never touched her during that slide tackle drill. I wouldn't do that. That's not okay with me. And Your Honor, if the plaintiff really wanted you to believe Aubrey Saracen's story, if they wanted to make sure that that's the story you would stick with, you know what they could have done? Called the 15 other teammates that were present during the slide tackle drill. The 15 other teammates who were there when Rory was actually doing this drill. The 15 other teammates who were present when Rory was allegedly struggling so hard. But they didn't. There's a reason for that, Your Honor. Because they didn't want to hear what these other teammates might have had to say. So what are we left with? We're left with what was different about September 7th. The one thing that wasn't usual about soccer, the one thing that Coach had never heard about with her teammate, the one thing that had never happened before. The cocaine in Rory's system. Now, this cocaine is something that Coach Taylor didn't know about. You heard from Rory's mom, she had no idea that Rory was taking any drugs. Nobody on that field knew that Rory had cocaine in her system. But when the plaintiff just got up here a moment ago and talked to you about this cocaine, they told you, well, surely that can't be the reason that Rory died, because you see, we've got this expert report here from a doctor, and he says that cocaine use, well, it was just nominal. They left something out, Your Honor. There's a line they keep skipping over in that expert report. Your Honor is going to be able to review that report. You'll notice where the expert says, I think that amount might be so low because her blood was tested long after she died. I think that amount might be so low because testing wasn't done quickly. And then they tried to tell you, well, this is the only medical doctor in the case, so that's who we should listen to, this big cardiologist. Your Honor, there was a cardiologist who discovered cocaine in a teenager's system, and he spent all of 2 seconds on it in his expert report. He said, well, it was nominal, so I'm not going to talk about it. An expert cardiologist didn't think that talking about how cocaine could affect a heart was important. That's not reasonable. Your Honor, when you look at that expert's report, you won't see a single mention of how Rory's heart was affected. The only time you'll even see the word heart is when he was talking about Rory's heartbeat. And what did we learn that lowered heartbeat was a symptom of? Cocaine use. Your Honor, we know what killed Rory Street on September 7th. It was cocaine. But I want to be really clear for a second. I am not trying to judge Rory for using cocaine. I'm not trying to blame her for taking it. She was a high schooler. And we get it, high schoolers make mistakes sometimes. The only thing we're trying to say is that this cocaine, it impacted her, caused her heart to swell, her blood vessels to constrict to the point where she couldn't breathe anymore. That's why her heart failed. And it makes sense, Your Honor. It makes sense when we lose a young high school student that we might want to look for someone, anyone to blame. And the hardest truth is that sometimes there just isn't anyone to blame. But because the plaintiff couldn't prove to you that it was Coach Taylor's actions that caused Rory's heart to suffer, because they couldn't prove to you that it wasn't her cocaine use, they failed to meet their burden. And because they failed to meet their burden, because it was the cocaine, not the coach, You must find Coach Taylor not liable. Thank you.
Okay, give me a second to reset the clock. You have 4:54. I'll start the time as soon as you begin talking, and I'll give you the hand signals that we discussed earlier.
Yes, Your Honor.
Whenever you begin.
The defense just stood up here and talked at length about the cocaine that was found in Rory's system. But remember, it was a nominal amount, and our expert, the medical doctor, the person who can tell you how this impacts a person's body, fully refuted it was the cause of death. But more importantly, this means the defense today took on an affirmative duty, and they have utterly failed to meet their burden here today. They have not proven at all that Rory even took cocaine that day. We saw no toxicology report. We have seen absolutely no evidence today that Rory intentionally took cocaine or knew that cocaine was in her system. Everything the defense is basing this claim on is speculation. And because they're speculating, that means they want Your Honor to speculate. This is not enough to meet their burden today. Rory did not cause her own death. The defendant did. The defendant's negligence is what caused the death, and it's based on more than just ordering Rory to run until she passed out. It's based on holding practices that go beyond what is reasonable for a soccer practice to look like. No water breaks in over 100-degree weather, no supervision. You heard how the defendant didn't even know if her trainer was supervising Rory while she was running those drills, something she admitted is irresponsible. Instead, the defendant invented a new untested drill. That is the difference in the practice on September 7th, and that is what led to Rory Street dying on that field. The defendant allowed her player to get hit over and over again, despite seeing the clear and visible signs that she was struggling. She ignored this struggle from her player and continued to let her get punished. 15 punishments in a row that led to the death of my client's daughter. That was all under the defendant's control. And because of this, you must hold the defendant liable for the death of Rory Street. Thank you.
Good job, guys. Scoring judges at this time, if you can turn your ballots in, but everybody hang out in the room until I get confirmation that the ballots have been tabbed. Very good job. Good job, second chairs. Thought it was really entertaining. And I have to say, as someone whose voice is like Southern Squidward, the both of you have like voices that could read the phone book and make it interesting. I'm sure y'all have gotten that before, but it was very enjoyable and engaging to listen to. So thank y'all. I'm glad that I was included in this. I'm going to pop out in the hallway really briefly just to see where we are with tabbing, and then I'll be back in a moment. Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yeah.